I'm going to read a couple poems today from Gerald Stern's book, American Sonnets. And I got the chance to meet and talk with him, as I've talked about before. And the book that he was talking about when I met him was American Sonnets. And I thought it was quite funny that two things were funny. Being a poet myself, I know how incidental poetry is, how you're walking along and you're thinking of things and all of a sudden you get this stream of music and you sit down and you write it out and then you edit it, you cross out the words that sooner or later become unnecessary. Usually I put my poems up on a board, up someplace where I can see them and read them over and over again, and then during that time of reading them over and over again, I'll come on what's unnecessary, what's necessary, what might be said better, and sometimes they come out and they are just the way that they are. Gerald Stearns showed us his method for writing poetry, which I found quite interesting, and I've actually used it since. He takes a roll of butcher paper and he begins to write down an incident from his life, a memory, a clip of memories. And he writes it out in paragraph form or in journal form, just as many words as possible, and then he goes through and circles and clips and crosses out different sentences, different ideas, switches them around, and makes a poem out of them. But they start out a big, long section of butcher paper that just has a memory on it, which I found pretty fascinating. But he talked about American Sonnets, and he said he never really meant for them to be sonnets. They just came out the way they came out, and they all ended up being about the same length, which you can see them on the page of this book. They're all about the same length. And so because they were all about the same length, but they didn't follow the rules of a sonnet exactly, a sonnet being a song, and he thought, Americans don't really follow the rules. We're independent, we're free, and we tend to do things our own way. So he titled the book American Sonnets, which has gotten the book a lot of acclaim and a lot of attention for a poetry book, of course, which means not very much acclaim and not very much attention, except in the poetry world, which is a small world. It's kind of like, who's the most famous bowler in the world? A lot of people know that. I have no idea, but a lot of people know who the most famous bowler is. And I just find it funny, these small circles of fame, where we each have circles that we may or may not be famous in. And among those circles, we can get to feel pretty big about ourselves. And it's a pretty silly thing. And until, I guess, you reach the pinnacle of fame, which is a place that I just can't imagine wanting to be, like the Britney Spears level or the Michael Jackson level of fame. I just can't imagine that's very fun. So anyway, I'm going to read a couple poems from Gerald Stern from this book. And I'm going to read some of the ones that he talked about. One of the ones that he talked about was this one called Standing Up, and I just found it funny. This was a good memory for him. Standing up. This is what happened, and those that want to judge me can all be damned. My friend Larry was called up months, years really, before me, 1942, I think, and he put me in charge, I don't know what else to say it, of the girl. I think she was 17 he was keeping company with. She was a KM, a kitchen mechanic. In the stupid world we lived in, half the families had maids from the Slavic world surrounding us, and I was to be her protector, and I was allowed to fuck her, but only standing up. That was the pact the three of us made, and I was loyal and never broke the rule, though it was hard on the thighs, and we grew to love each other a little, but I was always true to Larry. She wore a chenille robe, a kind of violet, and her breath always smelled of peanuts. To this day, I smell the peanuts. What should I say? We went to the movies. We took long walks in the woods. I think they got married after the war and moved to California. I wish I could say her name. The next poem I'm going to read is called Alone. Alone. I was alone, and I could do what I wanted. I couldn't believe my luck. If I wanted to sleep at 10 in the morning, I could sleep, or 2 in the afternoon if that was my time, or wander by car or foot delicately in the night when everything was resting, exhausted, and stop to eat in quiet. No humor at last. Coffee, oh coffee. I was sitting alone at a counter. I was in a painting sort of closeness, closer than love between me and the waitress, and when I paid the bill, more closeness. I walked from window to window. Once I walked the length of Amsterdam Avenue. Once I walked from Lake Garda to Venice, 100 miles, and Venice south to Florence through Bologna. I ate mortadella cheap. I washed in the fountains. I slept with barking dogs, and twice in my life I woke up surrounded, once on the floor of a train station, once on the floor of a bank. I left at 5 or 6 in the morning. I put my keys in a bottle. I wore 2 pair of socks, and I hid my money.